Hey everybody, my name is Axel Villamil. This is 24 Shades of Blue. We're here at Toronto Police Services Marine Unit HQ, and we're going to be speaking to Kevin Lee, who is the Community Service Officer for the Toronto Police Services Marine Unit. We'll be learning about everything that happens with the Marine Unit and everything that goes on and what type of calls they get taken on. So come on and check it out. So Kevin, just wondering what the difference is between the Marine Unit versus any of the other units at Toronto Police Services.
Well, the Marine Unit's a support unit, so we're under Specialized Emergency Response. We're in the same umbrella as ETF and K9 Unit, so we offer support to any of the divisional units on anything dealing with the water or any specialized search requirements. So that would where we would come in.
Nice. Is there any common misconceptions that the public has about Marine Unit?
Most people kind of just see us kind of patrolling the edge of the water because we're looking to see what's going on shore. And it just looks like we're out for a boat cruise every day, but it's the same as patrolling in a police car.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think in reality, I mean, definitely from when I first saw Marine Unit, I'm like, what exactly is Marine Unit, doing? Especially in like Ontario, I wouldn't think that there's a lot to do, but what kind of stuff do you usually get called out for?
If we're not doing our kind of divisional assistance type calls where we get called, basically any division that has water to deal with, we get called to assist with a lot of searches for missing people, collection of evidence that's been dumped or lost in the water. And then in here we do a lot of water safety for the boating community. That's a major part of what we do when we're not assisting a division. So most of our messaging is just water safety, because being on the water can be so unexpectedly dangerous. So that some people just aren't prepared with all the safety equipment they need, and some people don't even realize, even if they've taken their test, they just kind of forget the things that they're required to have with them on a boat. So a lot of our stuff is just safety messaging, and then enforcement. If people are breaking the speeding laws on the water or don't have their safety equipment, we deal with the island as well. So
I was going to ask you about that with the island. I mean, there's a lot of parties that happen on there. So you and your team are obviously in charge of things that happen there as well, or bring out other teams to help enforce those.
If there's big events on the island, a lot of that will be it's 52 Division will probably be handling it with their community response guys, but we end up being the transport, obviously back and forth for any of that goes on, and then any of the water components around the island itself. On the day-to-day basis, we respond to all the calls on the island, just regular calls like a domestic call or assault call or any of the usual break-and-enters and things like that. We deal with all those calls for the residents that live on the island. So, and then if there's a further investigation to do, something major, then that end of it goes to 52 Division for the investigative side, because we don't really have an investigative capacity here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works that way.
What type of special training does Marine Unit have to do? Obviously there's water, but is there anything else that, is, I guess, special about the training that you guys do?
Well, to get to the unit itself, you need to apply, and then you do a physical test. So people that apply to the unit have to pass a physical test, and then if you pass that, then you need to do an interview here, a panel interview, where they ask various questions about what you would do in certain situations. And then once you get that, if you're chosen to come down and take the course, it's called the Cockswings Course, and it's a 3-week course that is run by our training department. It includes how to operate these vessels, all the different types of vessels we have, and search and rescue, how to run different patterns, and how to do navigation on the water, all the basics you need, and then it's in-house learning after that. And then as long as you pass that course, you get put on a list to come down here when spots become available.
I mean, I only did a little bit of lifeguarding before, but I guess what would be one of the hardest tests, especially from a physicality standpoint, that you had to go through?
The swim, I mean, unless you're like a competitive swimmer, like it would probably seem, easy enough for a competitive swimmer, but that throws a lot of people off, is the consistent swimming and doing laps of the pool. A lot of people just don't swim for that long. And then some people don't ever dive down to a depth of more than 10 feet. Some people just, their head goes under the water and they don't realize there's the pressure. When you get, the farther down you go, the more pressure there is. So probably that.
How deep do you guys go?
Well, it depends on which pool we have to use, because we have to use pools to do it. We don't actually do the testing in the lake itself, but I think it's maybe 10 or 12 feet, so it's not that deep, but it's unusual for some people. They just think they hadn't done that before.
You're not meditating down there?
No, they got to pick up a brick and bring it back to the top.
Nice.
So.
How about treading water? I remember that was a test
yeah,
we did.
Yeah, there's a timed water test, and then we do a simulated rescue. So you would partner up, and then you have to do like 2 lengths of the pool, dragging a person that's unconscious. So so there's that stuff. And the job itself is pretty physical. Like, just all our equipment is very heavy. The bags that we carry weigh anywhere between maybe 50 and 75 pounds, depending on what you carry in your bag. And that's the bag you got to bring around with you every time you go in the boat. So, you kind of got to stay in decent shape, or you're going to blow your back out just carrying our equipment.
So apart from the lake that is over here and all the other lakes that are within Canada, is there any other types of bodies of water, like swimming pools, that you and the Marine unit work with?
We're responsible for any bodies of water that are within the city of Toronto. The lake itself, we go to Scarborough-Pickering border, and to the east and to the west we go to Etobicoke, Toronto border.
And that's your jurisdiction?
Etobicoke Creek, and that's our east-west jurisdiction, and we go out 16 miles out, which is where the U.S. border is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's a lot of water. It's 440,000 acres of water.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. And at best, we'll have 3 boats out on the water for that. Beyond that, we'll do both major rivers, which is Don River, Humber River, and then even any other of the waterways, the man-made water spillways that are up around in 42 Division, 43 Division. There's Mimico Creek, Grenadier Pond in High Park. We've had to do a lot of searches in there for missing people, or people throw stuff in there that they don't want to be found.
Yeah.
And even swimming pools, like I said. If somebody drowned in a swimming pool, because of the way the Coroners Act is written, Marine unit can go in and remove the body and put it on shore. So you're not really supposed to touch a body until the coroner says so.
Got it.
We can remove it because the coroner's not going to dive into the pool to get the body. So
You guys have to.
We do that, and then so we deal with pools as well.
I mean, that must be just. I guess body removal must be a whole thing for everybody.
We do a lot of that here, and that doesn't really get reported on. We probably get, on average, between 30 and 40 bodies in the lake or in the rivers. Mostly in the lake for every year. That's kind of a gruesome standard, but that's about it.
I bet. How's the psyche for the team? I mean, it must be a gruesome sight. When you do look at it, I mean, it's very different now. It's bloated, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit more the bodies are in much worse shape when we pull them out, unless it just happened. Like,
of course.
But if it's somebody that's been down for a while, it could be a bit gruesome.
Do you and the team talk about it after, or you guys see people if you need to, type of thing, and be there for each other?
Yeah, we go through a process. There's a critical incident debriefs, kind of things that can be done if guys are having any issues with what they've seen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, guys seem to manage it pretty well. I mean, everybody that's here probably has been on the road for about 10 years, so they've already seen a lot of, just crazy stuff just from policing in general before they come here. So, so they're kind of mentally ready for it. It's just a different avenue to the weird things that we see.
Different department, absolutely. Yeah. In terms of Marine unit as a whole other department as well, what kind of equipment differs I mean, everybody, obviously, you're all licensed to carry a gun, but what other things do you use that differs from everybody else?
Well, obviously the boats is the big one.
Yeah.
So you need to operate in a 600-700 horsepower boat. Can be, challenging. And it's easy to go and rip around out in the open water in a straight line or turning, but
Yeah.
it's when you get into somewhere that's tight with
Absolutely.
a boat that gets tricky with the wind and stuff. So we have to obviously learn how to be pretty good boat handlers. And then with all of our rescue training, all the scenarios are different. So we do swift water training. So anybody that was in a river that needs to be rescued, if
Yeah.
the river's somebody's gotten trapped on one of the Lowhead dams that are in the Humber River. So we have all the scenarios. So we have a lot of gear that we use, ropes and lines, and go through specific training to safely get somebody out of a river that's going really fast.
Absolutely. Here you have
And
a
then,
robot.
and then the ice rescue too. We have
Yeah.
ice rescue gear for the similar thing.
Oh,
We have to
nice.
go out onto the ice and rescue people in the wintertime that fall through. And that does happen more than most people think.
Yeah.
So we do ice rescue. And then we also have another team. There's a dive team here
Yes.
that once you're here, you can kind of look to apply to the dive team if there's an opening. And then there's also a ROVE side scan, which means ROVE is a remotely operated vehicle. So it's a robot, underwater robot, little submarine, and then a sonar imaging system that takes a picture of the bottom as well.
Nice.
So those are things, once you're here, those are other avenues to specialize within the unit itself.
So you have way more fun toys than the other departments.
Yeah, we got
it.
some pretty cool toys. Yeah, it's all very unique toys, so it's all learning something that's brand new, which is always interesting.
Is it tricky to transition into Marine unit? From other units I've heard it's like, sometimes it's very difficult, or the processor's not enough spots, or the turnover is really low, so you don't have...
Yeah, it's it's there is enough turnover just through guys that would retire or guys that get promoted.
Yep.
Things like that, or another opportunity for another unit comes up.
In terms of the, I guess, getting into or transitioning into Marine unit, is it tricky
Right.
to transition from
right.
when you're outside
So,
of it?
Yeah, it can be. It's different. I mean, getting here is its own process, and then once you're here, it is very different. Like I came from 4 districts, so 41 division, or 42 and 43 division. Kind of before I got here, it's very busy. It's just different because the divisional guys it's just go because it's responding to radio calls.
Yeah.
And they just keep coming. It's just going to calls. And then when you're here, you're untied from the radio in that way.
Oh, you're
So
separated because
it's
it's
different
just-
because we're a support
you're-
unit,
got
so we
it.
don't just answer. And we only answer, obviously, calls that relate to the water. So there's not as many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also so you also have to be ready to do a lot of training.
Yeah.
Because this is training centric, because we're kind of, you have to do it right because there's nobody else that can come and get us if we screw it up.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
That's what kind of get out the atmosphere here. It's very it's the morning, so it's kind of relaxed,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I feel like everybody here is on a dime, ready to go to do what
Yeah.
they need to do.
it's very, all of our rescue scenarios, because they're water, are very time sensitive.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to, within the harbor, you need to be able to get there within a minute or two.
Oh, absolutely.
But outside, basically anytime somebody goes in the water, there's a chance if they aspirate any of that water
Yeah.
when their head goes under, you're very limited in how much time you have to get them before they're going to stay down. So,
Especially that Lake Ontario water.
yeah, it can be pretty cold. Outside of the harbor itself,
Oh, yeah.
it's really very chilly.
I bet.
Yeah.
Kevin, can you explain what room we're in and kind of tell us about what goes on in here?
Sure. Well, this would be our front desk area. We just call it that, which is basically where our station operator sits. And they're a little different than a divisional station operator in that they dispatch the calls to the Marine unit. So communications gets a 911 call. If it has anything to do with the water, it gets sent down here, and then they let go of the call, and then it's our responsibility to manage the resources and affect the call. So they're a little more like a dispatcher and a station operator kind of mixed together.
Nice. So you really are your own.
Yeah, because they don't have the Coast Guard radio system that we have to monitor, as well as the police radio band.
Oh wow! So you have double the work.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
we're in communication with them, and we're in communication with the Billy Bishop Airport.
Got it.
So there's a lot of different angles.
So what types of calls are usually coming in that you hear, especially in the summer? What do you hear?
The call that we get gets everybody going quickly is the person in the water call. So somebody's fallen in or capsized a boat, or if it's windy or bad weather, then the boat's, lost power going into the rocks, because everybody wants to be near the shore, seeing what's going on. Your boat loses power, wind starts blowing you into the rocks. So we get a lot of those. Those are kind of like hot calls where we got to go kind of full out to get there. We do get all of your other types of calls for just almost kind of general policing calls, where you get assaults and calls for the island, because the island is so busy. There's thousands and thousands of people on the island in the summer. We do a lot of vessel assist calls to vessel complaints, where people are like Hanlon's Beach. There you may get, in the summertime, you could get 100 boats all anchored off the beach. And so it becomes a big party zone. So then it just becomes like any other kind of public party kind of scenario. We get everybody's drinking and this and that. And the usual stuff, people diving on the boats and sea-doos ripping around in between everybody. So we just kind of, just for safety's sake, we're there a lot, and we get a lot of calls.
I think a lot of people think water is just up for grabs because it's water.
It gets a little Wild Westy out there with when people get on the water. So especially during the COVID stuff, people use the water as their kind of pressure valve release.
Of course.
Go there and do what I want, and it doesn't really work that way. But
Absolutely.
It just makes it busier for us.
Absolutely. And then apart from the water, what other, I guess, do you even handle water on land as well? Like, I guess for
so we would get the other types of calls beyond the lake itself is especially spring and fall, we get a lot more river calls. So, so we get all the calls for people that go into the river and swim and get trapped, or if the river floods. So we do river rescue calls as well. And in the wintertime, we'll end up doing ice rescue calls either on the river or on the shore. And even for things such as we would get called if somebody drowned in a pool. We would be going there. So we have all of our trucks, and we would trailer any equipment that we need up into the city for Grenadier Pond or any bodies of water in the city. We do calls for that, and we do searches for evidence or for a body in any of the bodies of water.
In terms of the roles within the unit, do you have, I'm sure you have your stronger swimmers or people that are just manning on the boat, or is everybody, an equal amount of swimmer strength or swimmer experience?
Generally, everybody has pretty similar, because we all have to pass the same tests as far as swimming is concerned. And then it's just depending on what you need. Some of the rescue techniques, we're using a lot of ropes, where somebody's going into the water to grab somebody, and you've got a line attached to your life jacket, and you're just basically swimming to them through the current to get them. And then as soon as you grab the person, get them in a safe position, you just stop, and the guys on shore, it's their responsibility to pull you back. So you're probably going to want some big guys on shore to not let you go. So we get the big guys up on shore to help get you to shore safely. So
nice.
So
and then it sounds like you also have a dive team. So it sounds like is that I would say that's one of the other sub categories.
There's like ways you can specialize within the unit itself. You can apply for the dive team or apply to the rove and side scan team. So there are two kind of avenues. Dive teams, obviously, they do all of the underwater diving. They're commercial divers, so they have to have their commercial. They go through the dive course at Centennial College and
like all the PADI
commercial
stuff.
diver. PADI. Well, PADIs, you need that to apply.
They're the basic,
And then you go to a commercial dive school to learn their techniques, because they do a lot of surface supply, where you have the big helmet
and then different respirator. Stuff
they do scuba, which is the tanks on your back, and then they'll also do surface supply, where you're attached to an umbilical cord to the boat itself, and they control your oxygen supply while you're working down below, because you can stay down there and come back up and not worry about any pressure differences and things. Then the rove team, they have the underwater robot, and they can just narrow the scope of a search area, because it's a long, tedious process to do it by a diver. They can only cover so much ground, and we can hopefully narrow the size of the area down by finding targets for them. We think that might be it, based on what the robot can see through its cameras and sonar. and then they can hopefully just clarify for sure if that's what we thought it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what kind of organizations does the Marine Unit work with? Or I guess our community organizations do you work with?
We work with community organizations. Well, we work with anybody on the water. So we work with obviously the city and the Port Authority. And we work with Harborfront Center along there. So they have a lot of property and manage the marinas that are on the shore. We work with all the marinas and yacht clubs that are within our boundaries. We do a lot of community events with, we do the boat show, we do the air show, the sportsman show. So we're just involved, and we try and have a small presence there. So I run our Toronto Marine Unit auxiliary program. So I have 9 auxiliary officers that come in and volunteer their time, and they go up to all of our, all of our events that we would have, or if we need to, we have a booth at the boat show. We're there to promote water safety, and then we have our auxiliaries help us man those community functions so that we don't have to use our resources from the water. So there's all of those shows. There's all the Red Path Waterfront Festival.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
that's
a lot.
good.
I can't even remember them all, to be honest. But there's a whole bunch.
In terms of water safety stuff, do you have those ties as well? That Marine Unit goes and teaches other, I guess, communities or clubs or teams that are on the water.
Yeah. We've in the wintertime, and we'll do all of our training and recertification that we don't have time to do in the summer.
Yeah.
But then we usually do an education component in the wintertime too. We've had officers, they put together a water safety presentation, and they'll go to schools.
Nice.
And they'll give a talk to different schools through that. And it's obviously different during COVID stuff, but before that, we were doing that on a pretty regular basis over the wintertime. And my function is I'll go out, and if any Marine Unit or yacht clubs and marinas want their members, they want like a talk about water safety and different scenarios, then I would go and talk with the community and promote water safety.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. In the winter, how is the Marine Unit?
It's good. It's a different pace.
Yeah.
It is slower in the winter. We're recertifying and getting our training caught up.
Yeah.
The calls that come in are different. They're either ice rescue calls. That's our big one.
Yeah.
People that fall through the ice, which does happen more than people think. Either on the rivers, people walking their dogs. The dog goes in. They go to get it. They fall in, and now we have to rescue the owner because the dog always gets out on its own.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty common call, ice rescue, and a lot of those kids down by the edge, messing around with the ice at the edge. How far can they go out?
Of course.
So, those kind of things. And then our equipment swaps out for the winter, so we have to learn how to use the hovercraft and how to use our ice boat, which is like it looks like one of those Florida Everglades kind of fan boats. One of those. It's got a big airplane propeller on the back, but it's a boat, so it can go in the water, it can go up on the ice, cross snow, whatever you need it to do.
Wow.
But so it's kind of crazy, but fun to operate.
I bet. And then I guess my other question was, is when there's the U.S. border and you're right at the edge of jurisdiction, how does that work if anything floats over? Like who deals with what? And is there any problems happen? No, we work pretty well with the U.S. side. We communicate with them quite often as far as the Marine components. We talk to all the different Marine law enforcement, or even the Border Patrol, CBSA, U.S. Coast Guard, all that. So it works out pretty good. If anything happens out on the border itself, we just, whoever's there first deals with it. Got it. And then we communicate, because it's just, if it's a rescue scenario, we just go out there, deal with it. If it's close, we're just going to get it. Of course. Anyway. Yeah. And then you go, okay, well, where are you from? And then we deal with it that way. Makes sense. So we're safety first, and then we can deal with the other stuff later. Nice. Yeah. What's your favorite thing about working here? Just everything's different. Like it's every day is different, like uptown too, but it's so varied here. And we have such a big scope and area to deal with. Every call is unique and interesting. So, was there any reason you chose Marine Unit, or just? I've always loved the water, and I had a boat and cottage type stuff. But I've always been interested in the marine aspect of things. So
Yeah, it was a good choice. It was a good choice for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time.
You're welcome.
And for being on 24 Shades of Blue. We're out.